evening and welcome. I am Amarachi Ubani. Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari addresses plenary at the 71st United Nations General Assembly, laments the number of people displaced by Boko Haram terrorists in northeast Nigeria. Chief Justice of Nigeria moves to end conflicting judgments by courts of equal jurisdiction, says investigation ongoing on erring judges. Vice President Oshibajo advocates solutions to Nigeria's economic recession with policies designed to fit the country's peculiar situation. And at least 17 people die after street protests in the Democratic Republic of Congo against President Joseph Kabila as they turn violent.
On Business News tonight, Central Bank of Nigeria begins its two-day crucial interest rate decision meeting today.
On Sports News tonight, Nigeria fails to gain promotion to Division 1 despite beating Tanzania by 9 wickets at the ICC Under-19 World Cup qualifier.
And from Abuja, I'm Gloria Umezuki. Chief Judge of the Federal High Court challenges judges in Nigeria to uphold justice by delivering firmer and unbiased verdicts.
The president has described as disheartening the number of people that have been displaced from their ancestral homes due to the activities of Boko Haram terrorists in Nigeria's northeast. President Muhammadu Buhari was speaking at the opening of high-level plenary on addressing movements of refugees and migrants at the UN headquarters in New York, said 2 million people have been displaced within the northeast. He, however, pledged Nigeria's resolve to working with the international community in addressing the issues of movements of refugees and migrants. Our presidential correspondent, Chukwuma Onekusi, reports.
The devastating effect of terrorism and wars takes center stage at the high-level plenary meeting to address movements of refugees and migrants in the world. The session featured speeches from world leaders, including the presidents of Slovakia Republic, Argentina, Niger, Zambia, South Africa, to mention a few. President Muhammadu Buhari is number 3 on the row. His concern is that the refugee problems are coming when the world economy is shrinking. He presented Nigeria's situation to the United Nations.
I apologize for the loss of audio in that report. We'll bring it to you as soon as we can. Meanwhile, world leaders attending the 71st session of the United Nations General Assembly have adopted the New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants, expressing their political will to protect the rights of refugees and migrants. By this action, UN member states are making bold commitments, including to start negotiations, leading to an international conference and the adoption of a global compact for safe, orderly and regular migration in 2018. They're also to develop guidelines of the treatment of migrants in vulnerable situations to achieve a more equitable sharing of the burden and responsibility for hosting and supporting the world's refugees. UN Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon has applauded the adoption of the declaration, saying it's a breakthrough in the collective effort to address the challenges of human mobility. The era of conflicting judgments from courts of equal jurisdiction may soon be a thing of the past, as judges involved in delivering such judgments have been warned to stop abusing their judicial powers. Speaking in Abuja at a ceremony to mark the commencement of the 2016-2017 legal year, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmoud Mustafa, declared that no court of equal jurisdiction should overrule a sister court in cases involving the same parties. He also asked the 22 new senior advocates of Nigeria who were sworn in at the ceremony to shun acts capable of bringing the judiciary into disrepute.
Several conflicting decisions were recklessly dished out by the Court of Appeal last year in the appeals arising from various decisions of the election petition tribunals given on the election petition filed by the parties who lost at the general elections conducted in 2015. Such decisions were made as the result of flagrant refusal of the panels of the Court of Appeal involved to be bound not only by its own decision, but also by the decision of this court. I therefore call upon judicial officers to have due respect for the law and strive to adjudicate in a manner that premised upon the principle of justice. Although new laws and practice directions have been enacted with the aim of speeding up the administration of justice, incessant delays remain and are aggravated by challenges from these seemingly bent on continuing to live in the doldrums of the past. Sadly, certain members of the bar are conspicuous in utilizing unethical, frivolous applications and appeals, multiplicity of actions in course of coordinated jurisdiction, and other acts of calumny to frustrate speedy dispensation of justice.
Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Mahmoud Mustafa, declared Justice Mustafa speaking earlier today. This week, as the United Nations General Assembly holds in New York, President Muhammadu Buhari addresses the National Assembly to address awareness of the situation in the Lake Chad Basin. This is a volatile area for all the countries that share the region, where many have been displaced, about 600,000 of them, but it's also a place where there's an increasing food crisis if nothing is done about it. I'm joined now by the former permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, Ambassador Raphael Horsfall. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10. He's in the Abuja studio. Ambassador Horsfall, President Muhammadu Buhari is at the UN General Assembly, where he's already addressed that summit on migration and movement of people. What is it about the Lake Chad region that makes it so delicate and yet volatile?
Thank you. This is a great opportunity, once again a great opportunity for Mr. President, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, to press home on the demand from members, countries within the Lake Chad Basin for the international community to understand the enormity of the crisis, enormity of the hardship, enormity of the vulnerability, because Lake Chad Basin is very unique because of high intensity, high volatility of the people living around the region. One of the primary objectives that Mr. President is going to sensitize to the people is the need for the world powers to begin to put a solid assistance, not just by talking, but also walking the talk. Lake Chad Basin, which comprises of countries like Nigeria, Niger, Chad, it is quite a very, very important aspect of human relationships that connect these three countries because of the sound and unethical practice of governance that have eluded the people of the area. So it is very important. You talk about the mineral resources, you talk about the human capital development. There are so much to talk about the Lake Chad Basin. It's quite an integral part of the countries that are living within the sub-region: Nigeria, Chad, and Niger.
And for the president to be addressing the UN and bringing this topic up, it means that he wants the UN to do something about it. So what can the UN do to help the Lake Chad Basin, where over 600,000 people are in need of food aid?
Certainly, one of the things that the United Nations and world leaders are going to do, that Mr. President is pressing a high demand, is the area of assistance, the areas of mobility, the areas of infrastructural development. Take, for instance, our country in the Northeast. There are so many people, millions of people that are living in the IDP camps. So many people have been disenfranchised, so many people have lost their homes. So many of them have died because of the effect of Boko Haram, because of the effect of terrorism. So we want the president and the entire people of Nigeria and the entire people of the sub-region want the world leaders, the United Nations, to be involved practically, fundamentally, in the ensuring that we have a sound political system, a sound democratic system, whereby, because most of the terrorism, most of the things, crises that you have in Africa are brought about because of lack of fundamental democracy, lack of inclusive democracy. If you look at the young men in Africa, so many of them are differentiated from participating in a democratic process in their various countries. But the most important thing that the world leaders and United Nations is going to do is to look at how they can implement their programs. They already have a project. They already have programs to be able to ameliorate this situation in Africa. But most of the times, to implement it to the letter becomes a problem. So we need, the president is going to press a high demand on infrastructural development. He's going to press a high demand on food security. He's going to press a high demand on health services. He's going to press a high demand on education.
Ambassador
Education
Hosford
is the key. Mobility is also
Ambassador
the key.
Hosford,
acceptability.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Raphael Hosford, for joining us tonight on the News at 10. I appreciate your being here tonight. We can now bring you that report about the president addressing the plenary of movements of refugees and migrants at the UN headquarters in New York, where he said 2 million people have been displaced within the Northeast.
The devastating effect of terrorism and wars take center stage at the high-level plenary meeting to address movements of refugees and migrants in the world. The session featured speeches from world leaders, including the presidents of Slovakia Republic, Argentina, Niger, Zambia, South Africa, to mention a few. President Muhammadu Buhari is number 3 on the row. His concern is that the refugee problems are coming when the world economy is shrinking. He presented Nigeria's situation to the United Nations.
Discourse on refugees and migrants in the case of Nigeria will be incomplete without reference to our internally displaced persons, victims of Boko Haram's terrible atrocities. The Boko Haram insurgency has caused a huge refugee problem of an estimated 600,000 persons for Nigeria's neighboring nations. In Nigeria, over 2 million internally displaced persons from the Northeast live in various camps across the country. We are making concerted efforts to meet our citizens' immediate humanitarian needs by reducing their risk and vulnerability and increasing their resilience through vocational training, skills acquisition programs, and particularly DIPs.
And on the solution by world leaders and what his administration has done so far.
So 600,000 number refugees is even a smaller number, because a state where has over 4 million citizens or 4.7 million citizens, about 2/3 of the state were taken over by the Boko Haram before the arrival of this administration. So government in the federal and the state and local government, they are doing their best. That's why the number became down to 600,000.
You know, the Nigerian position is very clear, and the president has been very strong on the need for us to make sure that we don't allow insurgency in the country anymore. And that position was also well expanded by Nigeria.
They told world leaders that if this summit does not find solution to migrant problems in the world and, of course, reduce refugee issues, then it has become another jamboree for these world leaders here gathered.
In part two, after the break, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo calls for full consideration of Nigeria's peculiar situation as solution to the current recession. Please join us again.